Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Wednesday, and all of our guests today, including Luke Gazdic, standing by. Brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions and ableauctions.ca. Joined now by Luke Gazdic, former NHLer, now an NHL analyst on Sportsnet. He's got the Mitts Off podcast. Luke joins us now, and we can't thank you enough, my friend. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. How's the world of broadcasting working for you?
Oh, well, thanks for having me, guys. It's been pretty good so far. To be honest, towards the end of my career, I ended in the American League in San Diego. After pandemic hit, I really didn't know what avenue I wanted to explore post-hockey. I think some guys have a pretty firm grasp on that, and I really didn't. And I got a call to do some Oiler intermissions, and it's just kind of taken off since then. Working a lot on TV and got the podcast going, and it's certainly a fun way to watch hockey. I can't complain too much. You know, at the end of the day, I get to sit in a big green room most nights and watch hockey and talk about it on TV. So I'm enjoying it so far, guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got a better microphone than any of us here, so that's a step in the right direction, Luke.
I like it.
Hey, Canucks defeat the Sabres 3-2. JT Miller was just outstanding last night. I don't know how much of the game you watched, Luke, but he gets a shot off the ankle from Tage Thompson, who can shoot pretty well. First period, comes back, couple of assists, 19, 20 minutes worth of ice time, 7th in the NHL in points. What do you think he means to the Vancouver Canucks?
Yeah, I did watch the game last night. I had them and the Oilers going. But honestly, JT for me has been one of the most fun players to watch and cover and analyze. We spend a lot of time at Sportsnet doing Calgary, Edmonton, and obviously Vancouver. And, in the past year or so with Vancouver, it's definitely been up and down. And I feel like JT has really kind of, taken that team on his back. And I said this before, and I think it still rings true, because every time I watch the Canucks, it's like whenever they need a big play or it's a big moment, it just seems to me like JT has been the guy all year that has been that player to deliver that for them. Whether it's a hit, whether it's a big defensive zone faceoff, whether it's a shot block or a big goal, he just seems to me like the guy that drives them. And I understand, like, he can be a difficult teammate at times, right? He holds his line mates accountable, and he's a very honest player. But I really do think, like I said, whenever they've needed something big, JT's been the guy to give that to them.
Hey, Luke, take a look at the Western Conference for me. You got Vegas, Colorado, Dallas, Edmonton. Nashville hasn't lost in 15 games. Who are the teams that you think that can come out of the West this year? Who are you looking at for a deep playoff run?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is truly one of the last years I can remember where there is probably up to 10 teams for me. We sat down in the studio the other day and we went through some contenders, and by the time I had gotten to 10, I didn't even realize. And out of the West, to be honest, the Central is a bit of a gauntlet. I think any one of those three teams in the Central has a chance to win a cup in Dallas, Colorado, and Edmonton. It'll be huge for them to win the division. But you look in that Pacific too. Everybody is counting Vancouver out. I think, I laugh every time I see the Stanley Cup odds, and it's always the debate question, is Vancouver for real? I'm like, listen, I know they play a little later at night because I'm in Eastern time, but why don't you watch them play hockey? Because this is a really good hockey team. And I think a lot of their success is going to be dependent on Thatcher Demko, because I think their success starts and ends with Thatcher Demko. Nothing against Casey DeSmith. I just believe that a healthy Thatcher is possibly the best goalie in hockey. I obviously lean towards the Oilers a little bit, not just because I played there and cover them, but Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, when they're going, there's nobody like that in hockey. And if they get some saves and Stu Skinner can keep the puck out of their own net, they will have a good chance at this thing as well. Can't hold out Vegas either, right? I think the Stanley Cup still runs through Vegas. I know the joke right now is, they still have to make the playoffs, but I don't think there's going to be any issue with that. I think the Stanley Cup still runs through Vegas, and if you want to win it, you're probably going to have to beat them 4-7 at some point.
Luke, Chris Simon passed away yesterday at the age of 52. His family says death by suicide. They believe CTE played a role in his death. What were your thoughts when you heard about this yesterday?
It's just another one gone too soon. And Chris was a guy who I didn't know. I hadn't met. Jamal Mayers, who I worked with on the desk yesterday, played against him and knew him and was just telling me some behind the scenes stuff, some stories just about, I think the memories of Chris were how menacing and how intimidating and tough he was, but also how skilled he was and how good of a hockey player he was. Jamal wanted to make that clear that people knew this is a seven-time 10 goal scorer, which for, a tougher player is pretty good. Scored 29 one year. And listen, I played a similar role. It's tough for me not to take that part out of it, but you go back to a couple years ago with Boogie and Rip. It's just it's really sad stuff, man. And I just really right now thoughts are with the family and any of his teammates and friends that knew and played with him.
I've got you at 28 NHL fights, Luke. That doesn't include your minor league career or anything before that, minor hockey, junior hockey. How's your health?
You know what? The shoulders are a little banged up. I'll tell you that. The number is 176 total.
Wow.
So, I have some aches and pains. I've had 4 surgeries on my shoulders, probably close to 100 stitches in my face, all over the place. And when I golf with my buddies in the summer, the wrists get a little sore. But all in all, I'm doing fairly well. I definitely, like I said, have some lingering stuff that has continued throughout my retirement. But I played a very hard game, and that's what I signed up for. I was fighting guys on the daily, especially in the NHL on a nightly basis, fighting guys bigger than I was. And I took a lot of pride in the way I played and how I was as a teammate. And, I don't regret a single thing. I think when I get sore sometimes too, I remember that, I definitely did it the hard way. So I just stick to alumni and charity games now, not too much rec hockey for me.
Any mental health issues at all, Luke?
I've gone through those challenges for honestly a better part of my career and even into retirement. Retirement was really tough for me. I got kind of the rug pulled under from my career. Pandemic hit, and to be honest, didn't really feel like I got the closure that I necessarily wanted. Not that hockey owes you anything, but it was definitely a really tough couple years from basically 2020 to when I got my start at Sportsnet. Was probably the prime peak of some of the stuff I was experiencing. And it's going from having a routine and having something you love and do on a daily basis, getting pulled away from you was a very tough adjustment for me. And it was not fun. And I understand that pandemic was not a very easy time for a lot of folks. And I definitely experienced some of the lows and still do. But listen, I have support systems. I still talk to former teammates that battle some similar things, and my family's here in Toronto. I should first and foremost shout out the NHL alumni who is doing an outstanding job in taking care of their own after they're done. So big shout out to the Alumni Association as well.
And Luke, what goes through your mind when you see what Matt Rempe is up to these days, or at least recently? And what's your stand on fighting, knowing what we know today?
It's a tough one, right? Because at the end of the day, these guys are making a conscious decision and they're making conscious choices to do these fights. And so did I. It wasn't like anyone was forcing me to do something I didn't want to do. But at the same time, I think we know down the line that this stuff can cause problems. But to me, it wasn't even a lot of the fights. It was a lot of the hard hits around the boards and some of those big defenders I played against. I love the intention that Matt Rempe has, to be honest. I said this a lot, is that he won't have to fight that much throughout his whole career. If he can grind it out for a bit in his first couple weeks, months, call it, it'll slow down. And that's kind of how I did. I led the league I led the NHL in fights my rookie year. I came in on fire and fought a ton in my first couple months, and then it really dipped off after that because there weren't as many challengers or as many takers. But I still think it has a firm place in the game. I don't love seeing as much, call them staged or whatever, setup fights if you want. I saw Reeves and Delorier did the same thing with Rempe where it's in warm up and he's asking, are we going to go? I didn't even like that when I played. If it happens, it happens. If you want a shot at me or if your team's leading and I want to, stir the pot a little bit or get my fans into it, then, we can have a good spirited go. If there's a couple clean checks and you want to come and make me answer the bell, albeit, but I was never even really a fan of, setting that stuff up beforehand. I really thought that took away from the whole idea of it.
We could go on and on about this, Luke. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. We want to get you back on. And again, thanks so much.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.
You bet.